I can knock him out, I can submit him, whatever. The only thing I know for sure is that I'm gonna knock him out in the first round or submit him in the first round, because he walks forward. I'm not gonna need to close the distance with him. Since the first moment, we are gonna find each other in the center of the octagon. So, yeah, it's gonna be a first round finish.
UFC 317 predictions ignite chaos as fighters and legends split over Oliveira versus Topuria outcome.
You're fighting on the Charles Oliveira versus Ilia Topuria card. Charles is a big underdog. How do you see that fight going?
Man, that's a tougher matchup that a lot of people think. They think Topuria gonna run through Charles. You never count Charles Oliveira out. I think he's very tough. But Topuria is good, you know? He's 145. It's going to be a tough fight for both fighters. I don't have an opinion on that. I was leaning more to Topuria, but today I just had a podcast with Charles on my Brazilian channel. It's just very hard to not like the guy. That makes harder, you know, to pick against him. So I'm going with Charles just because he's Brazilian.
Islam Makhachev has sparked controversy once again, this time with his comments on the UFC 317 main event between Charles Oliveira and Ilia Topuria. The former lightweight champion, now moving up to welterweight, didn't hesitate to weigh in on who he thinks has the upper hand in the vacant title fight. According to Makhachev, Oliveira has a serious opportunity to shock the world, but only if he sticks to the right strategy. The fight, he says, will hinge entirely on execution. For Makhachev, it's a razor-thin contest where one fighter can dominate if everything goes according to plan, but the same fighter could also be knocked out cold with just one wrong move. His breakdown of the clash has split fans, fueling even more hype around the title showdown.
Ilia Topuria has said a lot about you. He's being very respectful now this week. Like he said, he doesn't think you ducked him and he respects you for chasing your goals at welterweight. Who do you think is going to win on Saturday at UFC 317 between Ilia and Charles Oliveira?
It depends, man. Who can follow his game plan, you know? If Charles can take him down, he can finish him easy in the ground. Or if Topuria catch him, he gonna sleep, you know? And two options. Who is gonna make the game plan working?
There's never been a two-time lightweight champion. Charles will be the first if he wins. That would be a big accomplishment.
Well, I don't know about it, but he has chance. He has big chance, you know.
Yeah.
And he always fight good against the striking, you know, striking. But if Charles have small chance, if you give him small chance, he's gonna finish.
Makhachev, who previously defeated Oliveira in 2022 with a commanding submission performance, believes this matchup isn't about who's more skilled on paper, it's about who makes fewer mistakes when it counts. He described the contest as a true 50-50 fight. If Oliveira gets Topuria to the mat, he sees the Brazilian closing the show with his elite-level submission skills. However, if Oliveira gets clipped while standing, something that has happened before, Topuria has the type of power that could end the night in an instant. Makhachev emphasized that both men are more than capable of winning, but only if they impose their own style without getting sucked into their opponent's rhythm.
Who do you think is going to win on Saturday at UFC 317 between Ilia and Charles Oliveira?
It's good question. It depends, man. Who can follow his game plan, you know? If Charles can take him down, he can finish him easy in the ground. Or if Topuria catch him, he gonna sleep, you know. And two options. Who is gonna make the game plan working? I will put 50-50.
Yeah, 50-50? Okay, yeah, that's fair.
Adding to the growing chorus of voices surrounding this fight, Dustin Poirier, Oliveira's former opponent in a lightweight title bout, shared his insight on how the Brazilian could pull off a win. Poirier, who lost to Oliveira in 2021, recalled how effective Oliveira was at managing range. Instead of standing in striking distance for too long, Oliveira made sure to either clinch or retreat back into kicking range. That kind of distance control could be crucial against someone like Topuria, who thrives in tight, close-range exchanges. Poirier believes that Oliveira must not fall into the trap of trading shots in the pocket, especially with a compact striker like Topuria who throws with knockout intent behind every punch.
I want to start with Ilia here, Dustin. Obviously, everyone praising his boxing, saying he's one of the best out there. When you watch this guy, like, what makes his boxing so good and effective?
Just good work. The crispness of his the shots he throws out, his technique, his positioning. I mean, a lot of stuff, man. He's really, really good and really dangerous. and he was putting people away at 145. To see him going up to 55, and he's gonna have more ass in those punches. You know, he's a very dangerous guy. Like I said when I was working for ESPN during the Max fight, like he's everything he said he was coming into that fight, and he proved it.
Yeah, I feel like everyone's just assuming it's a given. The power will translate. Like obviously he kind of had that death touch a little bit at 45, but like it kind of reminds me of Conor. He was, you know, stiffing guys at 45, but then, you know, he had to knock Eddie Alvarez down 3 times before finishing him and like stuff like that. So is it wrong to just assume 100% it's going to be that same type of power or more?
It's tough to say. You know, it depends how his speed comes over to 55 because he's good in the pocket. But his technique, without a doubt, is going to transfer over to 155. And I think he's putting away guys with power, but with skill, with more skill. Of course, the guy can punch.
Poirier added that Topuria's confidence in his own grappling could ironically give Oliveira his best chances. Most fighters avoid grappling with the submission specialist, but if Topuria chooses to follow him to the ground without caution, he could end up in dangerous territory. However, Poirier also highlighted a concern. Oliveira has, in the past, shown signs of mentally fading when opponents stay aggressive even while inside his guard. That psychological vulnerability could come into play if Topuria forces Oliveira to defend relentlessly without finding opportunities to counter or recover. For Oliveira to stay in the fight, he'll need to start strong, assert his dominance early, and avoid getting drawn into a brawl that suits Topuria's strengths.
Charles does get hit a lot. You know, I got some people on Twitter for saying I think Ilya is going to beat Charles after Full Violence posted that video of me saying that in the boxing gym. But that's just what I think. Charles does take a lot of shots, and Ilya is a guy we haven't seen it really, but he's confident in his jiu-jitsu. He's going to follow Charles down. You know, when I hurt Charles, and it's rinse and repeat, a lot of guys have hurt Charles, but we don't follow. We try to make him get back up and touch him again. You know, I think Ilya, if he does sit Charles down, he's going to follow him up, get into his guard. And we've seen Charles, like when guys go into his guard and play jiu-jitsu with him and aren't afraid of that, kind of he starts breaking a little bit, I think. But we'll see what Charles shows up. It's a fun fight. It's a fun matchup. I think Charles needs to fight Ilya the same way he fought me. He was all the way in or he was all the way out. He never really fought me at that boxing range. If he was in, it was clinch work, body locks, you know, a lot of energy, but he smothered my boxing. Or he was at kicking range using those long front kicks. He's a long rangey guy. He needs to be all the way in or all the way out. He cannot play the boxing pocket game. You know, he needs to be clinching. He doesn't need to be exchanging shots in the pocket with the shorter guy who can crack.
Yeah, I kind of thought the same thing too, and it was further emphasized. I just saw a stat before we started recording here. Ilia Topuria has not thrown a head kick or a body kick in his entire UFC career.
Meanwhile, former UFC middleweight champion Robert Whittaker also gave his perspective on the matchup during a recent podcast appearance. Whittaker expressed admiration for both fighters, but acknowledged a particular emotional investment in Oliveira's story. The Brazilian has long been a figure of transformation in the sport, evolving from a once criticized fighter into one of the most feared finishers in UFC history. Whittaker praised Oliveira's journey, noting how he turned criticism into fuel and built himself into a resilient, dangerous competitor who now holds multiple UFC records.
I think all the support that's going, obviously Charles Oliveira is a weapon of a fighter. I'm a big fan of his. Big fan of Ilya as well, but I love Charles. Who doesn't love the story that he has? Okay, the heart that, like, he used to be such a quitter in those early days of UFC, and he just stopped quitting. He found something in him and came back with a vengeance all the way to the title to become champion. I think though, a lot of Ilya's a different beast. Okay, I think a lot of the support that's going towards Charles winning this fight comes from the fact that we don't know what Ilya is going to look like moving up. Now, I've seen a lot of photos circulating of like Ilya next to the Chihuahua guy, and then Charles next to the Chihuahua guy. Sorry, dude. What? That's isn't that his nickname?
Go on. I'm sorry for stopping you.
I was talking about.
Yeah, I do.
And then they're looking at size discrepancies. I don't think it's going to be a problem. I think if they were in, if weight wasn't in the equation, I don't think it would. I think Ilya would be a huge favorite. I don't know what the odds are right now. Is Ilya the favorite?
That said, Whittaker didn't let emotion dictate his analysis. He looked at the fight from a technical point of view and shared real concerns about Oliveira's ability to deal with Topuria's unique style. Highlighting Topuria's past performances, especially his statement wins over legends like Max Holloway and Alexander Volkanovski, Whittaker questioned whether Oliveira could survive the kind of pressure and striking power that Topuria brings. He noted that Oliveira's durability is often tested, and while the Brazilian can absorb punishment, doing so against someone as precise and compact as Topuria could be a recipe for disaster. For Whittaker, Topuria's physicality, sharp combinations, and tight defense make him a serious threat to Oliveira's hope of regaining the title.
Ilya is a weapon. What he did to Volk and what he did to Max, two of the best featherweights, Volk being the best featherweight to have ever done it.
Yeah.
Okay? He starched two legends of the sport. Okay, that is
crazy,
unreal. Ilya's skill set is ridiculous. Now again, Charles is phenomenal as well. Super dangerous off his back. Ilya has the grappling to do it. Charles standing, very textbook, but gets hit a lot. Ilya loves scrapping, loves moving on the inside, loves slipping punches to land punches. He's so good at dirty boxing. I just don't see where Charles wins his fight against Ilya.
Speaking of Volkanovski, the featherweight champion didn't mince words when giving his prediction for the UFC 317 main event. Having lost his title to Topuria, Volkanovski is well aware of the danger Ilya brings to the octagon. He believes the Spaniard's aggression and relentless forward pressure will simply be too much for Oliveira. From his viewpoint, Topuria doesn't give his opponents time to breathe. Even when hit, he continues to return fire without hesitation. That constant pressure, according to Volkanovski, makes Topuria a nightmare opponent for anyone who relies on creating space and engaging in prolonged exchanges. Oliveira, with his tendency to get drawn into wild striking sequences, could quickly find himself overwhelmed by Topuria's non-stop assault.
UFC 317 this weekend. I'm going to give you my predictions on the co-main and main event, and I'm going to keep it pretty short because I think it's going to be two finishes. I think Kai Kara-France is going to take this opportunity, bring the belt back to New Zealand. In early rounds, I think he can get the finish. I know it's going to be a tough fight. Pantoja's so tough, but I believe Kai can catch him. So I'm going to go with maybe an early finish for Kai Kara-France, and then in the main event, I'm going to go another finish. I think this is going to be fireworks from the start, but I think it finishes early, and I'm leaning towards Ilia Topuria. I think Ilia Topuria is going to be the new lightweight champion, which is going to be absolutely crazy. So it's going to be crazy scenes there in Vegas. I'll be there to watch it. Cannot wait. So catch the fights on KO Sports via main event, 12 p.m. Sunday. It's going to be a good one. Don't want to miss it.
Beneil Dariush, who knows Oliveira's strengths and weaknesses firsthand after being finished by him in the first round at UFC 289, also joined the list of fighters analyzing this bout. While he complimented Oliveira's unpredictable, aggressive style, highlighting how the Brazilian mixes up strikes, knees, kicks, and submissions in chaotic fashion, he leaned slightly toward Topuria when pressed for a prediction. Dariush believes Topuria's background in Greco-Roman wrestling and his clean boxing fundamentals give him an edge that many others simply don't have. He explained that Oliveira is a terror when allowed to control the flow, but Topuria's ability to pressure from top positions and avoid getting caught in submission scrambles might allow him to break through where others have failed.
They're overlooking Charles, and Charles, if he's able to mix in his Muay Thai, what I mean, like his knees and his kicks, and he's able to use those as fakes, it's going to be a really difficult fight for Ilya. And I think people don't understand. The last two fights, Ilya was able to win those fights, not because of his boxing, but because of his leg kicks. And Charles is very good at defending the leg kick. So it's not going to be an easy fight.
According to Dariush, the real key will be whether Topuria can neutralize Oliveira's attacks while staying composed in dangerous positions. If he can keep the Brazilian on the back foot and avoid getting entangled on the ground, he may very well be able to control the pace and wear Oliveira down.
Hey, I also got to bring this up with you, man. He was doing an interview with Shaq, who's a really great journalist. He has a page, Shaq MMA. And I had a look, man. Look at this right here. I don't know if you can really see the video, but over his eye, looks like a new cut that was just sort of stitched up right here. What does that look like to you? I was having a look with Brian Campbell on this before. Looks like a cut right over the eye that looks pretty fresh that got stitched up not long ago. I wonder how much. Yeah.
If it's already stitched up, then he'll be fine. It won't be much of an issue. Cuts like that take 5 days to heal. And
Really?
It takes 5 days to heal, but then you're not supposed to spar for a few weeks. So it could slow down his camp, but it shouldn't be anything dramatic.
The conversation around UFC 317 didn't stop there. Jorge Masvidal, always known for his blunt and straightforward takes, offered his full support for Topuria. In Masvidal's eyes, Ilya is more than just another contender. He's a rare breed, the kind of athlete who only comes around once in a generation. Masvidal called him 1 in 10,000, pointing to Topuria's complete arsenal and mental poise as qualities that make him stand out. From striking to wrestling, and even in high-pressure moments, Masvidal sees Topuria as someone who never loses composure and always knows how to adapt mid-fight.
Charles is bigger. Charles has kicks, knees, elbows, great jiu-jitsu. But Ilya is just different, brother. This guy's special. And I think he's going to be a world champion at 155. He's going to beat Charles, man.
Masvidal's praise didn't stop at skill. He was just as confident in Topuria's ability to exploit Oliveira's vulnerabilities. He pointed to Oliveira's defensive lapses as potential openings that someone like Ilya would capitalize on without hesitation. For Masvidal, this isn't just a competitive title fight, it's a moment for Topuria to cement himself as the next great champion. He believes Topuria will walk out of UFC 317 with the belt, and that the performance will leave no doubt about his status in the lightweight division.
I'd bet the house on Ilya. His grappling, offensively, it's very good. If like you shoot it on this guy's legs, and you make a mistake and you're the one going for the takedown, he has a very good chance that he might put your ass.
UFC flyweight champion Alexandre Pantoja, a close teammate of Charles Oliveira, has come forward with a strong endorsement of the Brazilian's chances in the upcoming fight. He emphasized Oliveira's combination of knockout power and elite grappling skills as a significant threat that could overwhelm Topuria, especially if the fight hits the mat. Pantoja stressed that Topuria would have to be extremely cautious on the ground, as any misstep could allow Oliveira to seize control and finish the fight swiftly.
I think that's everybody know what's can happen. You know, Topuria have amazing power in his hand, but of course, people talk about the Topuria grappling. He never show and something like that. It's like a very good chance if you can see that. You know, if he Charles putting his game like that. You know, I feel I look to Charles and remind me in my head the animal like a anaconda, you know, like the anaconda from Brazil, Amazonas, like a big snake, you know, gonna involve you and squeeze little by little, you know. That's Charles Oliveira. I think he go to that game plan, he can bring this belt back to Brazil. But if not, you're gonna give the opportunity to Topuria connect his hand. To put it short, he know how to fight with the big guys. He's stronger. Yeah, it's amazing fight. I think that's why everybody want to watch that fight. You know, that's so big because nobody know what's can happen, you know.
Commentator Luke Thomas expanded the conversation, framing the Oliveira versus Topuria matchup as more than just a title fight. He argued that this bout holds broader implications for multiple UFC divisions, elevating its importance in the sports landscape. Thomas noted that while many expected Topuria to face Islam Makhachev,
the #1 fight that could have been made among all permutations was Islam Ilya. That's the best fight that could have been made. But the point I've been trying to make is that while that would be the most desirable one to choose, it's not like you're getting something bad even though you're not getting it. In other words, Topuria against Oliveira for the lightweight belt is fire. I don't care what anybody else says, it's fire. And then I've been saying this whole time, Islam going up to 170 and seeing how he matches up there with De La Maddalena, potentially Brady, potentially Rachmanov, potentially Gary, potentially Buckley. I mean, any number of ways in which that could go. That
veteran fighter Michael Chandler shared insights drawn from his own battles with Oliveira. Recognized for his power and technical prowess, Chandler cautioned against underestimating Oliveira's toughness and ability to thrive in chaotic, unpredictable exchanges. While acknowledging Topuria's precision and calmness under pressure, Chandler highlighted Oliveira's growth as a striker over time. He suggested that those anticipating a quick victory for Topuria might be surprised by Oliveira's resilience and dangerous submission skills, which remain formidable obstacles.
Lightweight division is being turned on its head. Islam Makhachev vacated. He's going to welterweight. We have a title fight pretty much a month away exactly right now for the vacant belt between Ilia Topuria and Charles Oliveira. I guess, are you surprised this is the way everything played out, from Islam not keeping the belt and it being like an interim or something to the fight we ultimately got for the vacant title?
No, I'm not surprised. You know, and I think maybe some of those rumors and stuff maybe played into my decision on why I wanted to fight Paddy, why I wanted to get back in there. Obviously, if you look at the timing, I should have had a win against Oliveira. I messed that up. I should have had a win against Paddy. I messed that up. I've had these great opportunities and they've just slipped through my fingertips. So if I would have beat Charles, I would be fighting Ilia for the title right now, you know, but this is the way the sport goes. I'm not surprised at all the craziness that's happening. I'm happy Ilia came up to 155. I'm happy Max is at 155. You got Poirier. You got Poirier leaving the sport here in the next 6 weeks or whatever it is, which is crazy. You got Gaethje, you got Paddy. There's a bunch of different stuff going on. So I'll be cage side for that fight to watch it, and we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, who do you think is going to win?
Man, it's tough. You don't bet against freaking Charles Oliveira because he's so dang good everywhere, and he's a really hard guy to beat. With that being said, Ilia Topuria's got some crazy power in his hands and crazy accurate strikes. So it'll be very interesting to see how that fight goes.
Mateusz Gamrot also leaned in favor of Oliveira, citing the Brazilian's physical durability and extensive experience competing against elite lightweights. Gamrot pointed out that, unlike Topuria, who has only fought once at lightweight against a mid-tier opponent, Oliveira has consistently faced top competition, proving his ability to endure tough fights. He argued that Oliveira's well-rounded skills, mental toughness, and proven track record at 155 pounds could give him a decisive edge, despite Topuria's undeniable talent and potential.
Next month, the lightweight championship is on the line. Ilia and Charles, who do you have?
Very interesting matchup. Both guys has power and skills to get the win this fight. Like Ilia can knock him out, the Oliveira. He has heavy hands for sure. But also Charles Oliveira has a lot of good tools to beat Ilia in the ground, in the feet, everywhere. But I think Oliveira is really big guy. Ilia is short guy, and I think this is gonna be much different than the both guys, and I think that this is gonna be advantage for Charles Oliveira and he can win.
Belal Muhammad contributed a balanced breakdown of the fight, recognizing the high skill level of both Oliveira and Topuria. He outlined the critical factors each fighter must focus on to secure victory, acknowledging the strengths and challenges each competitor brings to the cage.
Don't try to sit there and box with him. Don't strike with him. I know you have a high guard, but you get caught a lot with looping punches on the outside. You don't want to get caught with a looping punch by Topuria. I would say go high body lock, let's test his strength. Let's see if he's strong enough for 155, even if you have to pull guard.
On the more skeptical side, analyst Tim Welch questioned whether Topuria's jump to lightweight might be premature. Despite Topuria's near-perfect run at featherweight, Welch expressed doubts about how well the Spanish-Georgian's compact boxing-heavy style will fare against a bigger, more versatile opponent like Oliveira.
That's a dangerous fight. Rab calls it stupid to make Ilia Topuria fight Charles Oliveira before Islam Makhachev.
How is that?
Ilia Topuria says he got promised that he would fight for the title if he vacates.
By who? The security guard outside his room?
Yeah, he kind of hinted that he got promised that. I feel like Charles, Ilia...
That'd be fucking fire.
I think Ilia might batter him. The way Charles comes forward with those reckless knees,
and he's got the chin floating up high too.
Stands up tall like a really tall Muay Thai guy, and Ilia's like a low boxer. That's a dangerous fight for Charles.
Sean O'Malley offered a nuanced perspective, viewing the fight as an even matchup. While he emotionally favored Oliveira, O'Malley acknowledged that Topuria's clinical striking and heavy power could pose serious challenges. He praised Oliveira's comeback ability and dangerous mix of striking and submissions, but also noted Oliveira's vulnerability due to the amount of damage he tends to absorb. In a fight against a finishing machine like Topuria, this susceptibility could prove costly.
Could I get your read on how Topuria versus Oliveira plays out?
Man, that's one where your heart's telling you, you know, Charles, and your brain's telling you Ilia. It's just that one's a coin flip. Can't count Charles out. Ilia's on an absolute tear. You know, Charles does get hit and Ilya cracks. That fight I am very excited for.
As the fight draws near, the opinions of these high-profile figures, Makhachev, Poirier, Whittaker, Volkanovski, Dariush, and Masvidal, reflect just how intriguing and unpredictable this matchup is. Some are leaning on experience, others on raw talent, and still others on personal battles they fought inside the same cage. What's clear across the board is that both Charles Oliveira and Ilia Topuria are being recognized for their incredible abilities, and both are carrying the weight of expectations into the octagon. Oliveira, the veteran looking to become a two-time champion and silence his doubters once again, enters the fight with more to prove than ever. Topuria, the undefeated phenom, steps into the biggest moment of his career with pressure and opportunity colliding all at once. The outcome remains uncertain, but one thing is guaranteed. Whoever walks out of T-Mobile Arena with the belt will have earned it in one of the most high-stakes title fights in recent memory.